Right. Well, welcome to Connect to Thrive Mastermind with Annalieza Landa. And Annalieza comes to us from Yorkshire, England, and I'm excited to hear she's going to be talking to us about values in practice. And the subtitle is Don't Undervalue the Power of Values. So I love the discussion usually on values, but it's interesting because Annalieza, I had some experience. We've kind of gotten to know each other a little bit. And in the corporate world, core values becomes kind of a buzzword, as she put in her introduction, right? In the business world, we talk about vision and mission and core values and things like that, and all value propositions. But it's more than a buzzword. It's more than that. It's people put it on our core values on a website. And again, by the way, I'm not dissing knowing what that is, but it is a lot deeper many times than what is done in the corporate world. So they proudly proclaim their core values, but really your values have the power to convert into growth, into actually attracting your ideal client, the people that are your peeps, if you will. And so, loving the focus here, I want us to think about a lot of things and that Annalieza is going to provoke here. Some of the questions that I put in the promotion here is, why should we take, as business owners, entrepreneur, I don't care if you're an entrepreneur or running a large organization, most of the people in this community, you don't have a bunch of employees, but that doesn't mean anything, because if you have to know your core values as you begin to network, build your partnerships, look for the clients and those kinds of things, and knowing what your values are helps you as well as your prospects align with you. So, but what happens when you don't? If you don't know the values? We don't spend any energy. A lot of times we hear it. What she talks about today, we'll say, oh yeah, that makes sense to me, but then when we get back to it, we don't actually implement it. We don't really get serious about what's going on. And so the question really we want to pursue today and kind of focus on is, how do we power up our values? How do we as business owners get that? Annalieza Landa, she's now known, she's trademarked this as the Values Differentiator. She's a speaker, an activist, and a self-proclaimed Values Evangelist. She's fueled by her experience, which many of us are on our journey of impact these days, in her experience in employment and her life experiences that have got her to today. She's on a mission to change things for the better, and she pursued a certification of value-based leadership philosophy, and in 2016 she set up her own consultancy focused on that, called Make Your Marque. And Annalieza now helps businesses grow by growing their values quotient, partnering with them to power up their values, and putting them into practice. It reduces the risk, costs, and increases profitable outcomes. And we'll talk a lot about that today and how that is manifest in your business. And so we're going to go on, and I could go on about Annalieza, and I'm gonna have her on Warrior versus Zombie, so we'll get to hear a little more of her story, which is fascinating, and she is brilliant. So with that, Annalieza Landa, take it away.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, David. And it's wonderful to be leading your Connect to Thrive Mastermind today. Thank you so much for having me. Those two, I should just say as well, just first off, you said that I'd actually trademarked it. So slightly different in the UK than it is in the US. I know TM over in the US actually does mean you've trademarked it. Over here in the UK, it would be the R sign for registered trademark. TM is a way for us to kind of bag it, to protect it while we're in the process, or before we start the process of doing that. So I just wanted to get that clear for everybody. In the interest of transparency, since we're talking about values today, I just wanted to make sure that that you understood that, and that everybody watching as well understood that as well. So those two questions that we started off with, why should businesses take values seriously and what happens when they don't? I'm going to start with a little teaser for you to see whether you can guess the company from the values that I'm going to read out to you now, okay? So, the first one, respect. We treat others as we would like to be treated ourselves. We do not tolerate abusive or disrespectful treatment. Ruthlessness, callousness, and arrogance don't belong here. That's value one. Value two, integrity. We work with customers and prospects openly, honestly, and sincerely. When we say we'll do something, we'll do it. And when we say we cannot or will not do something, we won't do it. Number three, communication. We have an obligation to communicate. Here we take the time to talk with one another and to listen. We believe that information is meant to move and that information moves people. And finally, excellence. We're satisfied with nothing less than the very best in everything we do. We'll continue to raise the bar for everyone. The great fun here will be for all of us to discover just how good we really can be. So, from that description, can you guess who the company was? Any ideas?
No, they all sound the same.
No, they're all the same values of the one company. So all those values that I read out describe the values of one company.
Yeah, and
The same
so
values every company puts out. I can't tell who it is.
Right, okay. Interesting. Anybody want to give it a go?
Amazon.
No, not Amazon.
okay, so that was Ricky's. Ricky's guess was Amazon. Don said it sounds like some of. Yeah, I think if I can say it sounds like a lot of the platitudes sometimes that we hear at the corporate level, and really discerning who that company is from those values only comes when they're living those values. Obviously, if that's really their values, it's great, but I'm not sure who it is. Hopefully, it's not a media company.
Still.
Okay, so I'm going to put you out of your misery then. Thanks for those guesses, by the way. But it was actually Enron. These are the values that
no.
Enron put out.
Yeah, just before they got closed down, I bet. So yeah.
Yeah. So in one word, really, why should businesses take values seriously and what happens when they don't? Enron. Okay. So just reading out, shareholders lost $74 billion. Many of Enron's employees whose entire retirement funds were invested in Enron stock were wiped out financially. And the organization's corporate officers were convicted of obstruction of justice, conspiracy, securities fraud, bank fraud, wire fraud, and insider trading, and they spent years in prison. So their actions stood in stark contrast to their published values. And this is key. So don't undervalue the power of values. For too long, values have been the poor relation of vision and mission. They say that every dog has his day. Well, now it's Values Day. In fact, next Thursday, it is Values Day. It's World Values Day, but I'm going to circle back to that just before the end of the mastermind. Values Day kind of brings to mind the movie Independence Day. And when we look at what's happening in the world today, well, in business, we talk a lot about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. But in our global community, with the exception of wartime, we've never lived in such turbulent times. So now is the time for our values to step up to the mark and to make their voice heard, because values, when they are the right values, are our anchor, our compass, the glue that connects us or not. And when we look closely, we see it's all about values. Deeply held convictions, ideas, or principles that drive our behavior and, crucially, shape our reality. Values are shaping our societies, shaping our economies, shaping relationships and communities, and also shaping future generations of leaders. Good leadership practices, bad leadership practices. Good values, bad values. Healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships. Good values, bad values. Thriving economy and communities. Barely surviving economy and communities come down to good values and bad values. Happy human resources, high attrition rate. Good values, bad values. Good reputation, bad reputation. Good values, bad values. Repeat custom or always having to chase custom. Good values, bad values. The gap between the expectation you create and the reality, the values you preach and the values you model. Don't undervalue the power of values. You do so at your peril, because values are at play every single day. Every thought you have, action you take, decision you make is driven by your values, whether you're conscious of it or not. Your values. Or are they? When was the last time you revisited your values? Or even visited your values? Have you ever intentionally sat down and considered your values? Have you ever stopped to question where your values have come from? Who or what has influenced them? And what does your life story say about them? How does your life today reflect them? How have your values changed? Do you know? Have you ever compromised your values to please someone in your life, traded one of your values for theirs? Did it turn out to be a good trade? Maybe before you met them, your values were questionable. Maybe they improved your values. Or maybe the relationship was to the detriment of you and your values. Have you ever found yourself in a sticky situation by compromising one of your values? And how did that make you feel? Did you stop to reflect on the values that invited that sticky situation into your life? These are all questions I'm going to come back to at the end as we mastermind on values. So don't underestimate the power of values. If I were to ask you to tell me your 5 core values right now, could you do so with absolute conviction and certainty? Every time I coach on core values and take someone on a journey to identify their values, there's always an element of surprise when they discover that their core values are not what they thought they were. Now, sometimes they're marginally different and sometimes they're completely different. Values reflect who you are, or should reflect who you are. They're the keys to your inner Chevy. Don't undervalue the power of values. Expect your values to modify every 10 years or so, shaped by your growth and development, shaped by your experiences and your outside influences, significant others, politicians, the media, news and entertainment. You have to be alert to those influences. You have to keep questioning your values. Are your values best serving you? Are they serving your primary relationships? Are they best serving your team? Are they best serving your vision and mission? Are they taking you forwards or backwards? I say that values are the sat nav of your soul. Are they taking you to the sunshine state, or a dead end, or off a cliff, or round the bend? If you're not in control of your values, you're not in control. Someone else is. Someone else is in the driving seat of your life. By living and acting in ignorance of your values, when we don't pause to define our values and measure our words and actions by those values, we make our lives and our businesses vulnerable to the destructive effects of toxic values. So let's look briefly at the impact of values on 3 key areas of our life. Firstly, our relationships. Knowing our values and being guided by our values can protect us from unhealthy relationships. We know that personality has little to do with a successful relationship. Opposites attract, they say. Introverts and extroverts celebrate decades of marriage, as do couples with different interests, or couples that spend 75% of their leisure time with other people, their own friendship circles, inner circles, associations, conferences. But what about conflicts of values, our core values? Those convictions, ideas, or principles that reflect who we are at our core. Conflicts of values are a stress fracture, and you have to examine the conflict and decide if that fracture is weak enough to break. How is that values conflict going to show up in your relationship? What's it going to look like in action, and how is that going to make you feel? Unhappy? Sold out? Frustrated? Is it something that's going to cause you to chew on? When we know our values, we can set our values boundaries. We often talk about setting boundaries in our life, but the dis-ease that we feel when our boundaries are crossed is a result of a conflict in values. What about our businesses? Values lend clarity to our business practice. They act as a compass for making good business decisions and to navigate challenges more effectively as we live out our mission and journey towards our bigger vision. Foundational values provide a set of standards, providing you as the leader commit to modeling them. Increase your cachet, how much you're respected, admired, and trusted by your clients, customers, teams, and communities. So what are your foundational values? The values that every business should be built on as a given: honesty, integrity, transparency, trust, respect, kindness, empathy, cooperation, and collaboration. If you have those values underpinning your business, and everybody who works with you, including your suppliers, understand those values and understand how they play out in their interactions and the way they conduct their business and their business for you, then you're going to be building your business on safe foundations. Your company values are your unique values differentiator. And together with your values quotient, how high you score on the adoption and implementation of values throughout the company are unique to your business and reflect its soul, character, vision, and purpose. Depending on the size of your business, each function may have its own set of values that operate within the wider values framework. Now, when your values quotient is high, you're going to be rewarded with a high-performing culture and the attraction and retention of talent who resonate with your values and your purpose, who love working with you. And this is going to release that, what I call the magic mojo, discretionary effort. You're going to design and implement strategies that attract your ideal clients you love to work with. And very critically, you're going to reduce the risks and costs of litigation and a damaged reputation like Enron, because you're going to be empowered to build on a safe business infrastructure. And you'll see values convert into growth, sustainable success. Don't undervalue the power of values. And what about our health and our well-being, which is really important to us as business owners, especially if we employ other people and they're relying on us to pay them. How much value do you place on yourself? And what are your choices saying about the value you place on yourself, your habits and your lifestyle? When we allow our core values to guide us, we can make better choices that serve us. Many health problems, physical and mental, stem from poor choices led by our emotions, not our values. And we succumb to temptation. And some of those temptations might end in regret, remorse, guilt, or shame. And when those very powerful emotions are allowed to take root and fester, we can lose our ability to think rationally. And this can threaten our physical and mental well-being. So I want you to think of your values as your shield, as your defender and your protector. We can also use our values to determine our purpose in life if we're still searching for our purpose and meaning. Because purpose and meaning are inextricably linked to our levels of hope and self-worth. So even if we're still trying to find a bigger picture, find that bigger vision, that calling on our lives, we can use our values to guide us every day to doing something that is going to be in alignment with those values. It's going to honor those values and give us purpose and meaning, even if it just helps one person. So how will you know when you're aligned with your values, when you're making decisions that are congruent with your values, when you're living out your life in harmony with your values, having taken the time to review your values? Well, you're going to know it by an all-consuming sense of peace and joy in every key area of your life. So I said that I was going to circle back to those questions for the mastermind part of this. Let's bear with me a second. I'll get my piece of paper out here. So anybody, when was the last time you visited your values or visited your values? Have you ever consciously done that? Is anybody brave enough to go?
Wednesday.
Yes, excellent, Don. Wednesday. So yeah, so what triggered that then? What made you visit your values on Wednesday?
I'd gotten very busy and put them aside to get work done and was feeling sad, feeling overwhelmed, feeling run down.
Yeah. So you just went through the exercise to get back to your core, to get back to the things that were important to you?
Yeah, I brought it up at a group of mine and they pulled it back out of me and I was like, oh yeah, that's what was missing.
Yeah.
I've gotten so busy with the doing that I forgot who I was being.
Yeah. So now that you've got back to that, do you feel better?
I did that in a big group hug.
Oh, excellent. The big group hugs are always good. Ricky.
Yes, I had this happen to me where I had been associated as an independent manufacturer's representative for about 20 years. Uh, and 6 of them while I was a employee of another company. And then when I left, they gave me all of the manufacturer rep companies that they didn't want anymore. So for another 16 years, I was this rep, and I got a phone call that they had been sold, and to 2 people. One was an engineer, one was a lawyer, and the lawyer told me over the phone that he was glad to see I was on the team, that I was experienced, and he wanted me to write up a bunch of dummy quotes and send them out to my competitors and see what their prices were like. And I said, well, that's I can't do that. I can't lie to send out some fake quotes to my competitors. I wouldn't want them to do that to me. And he said, well, I'll be talking to you later. And he abruptly kind of hung up. And the next day, I got a registered letter that said that I was fired, that I was no longer a manufacturer's rep. They were enacting the 30-day clause in our contracts, and that because I wasn't a team player, I was fired. And I said, well, I thought to myself, it wouldn't have been worth it for me to jump through my value line and do something that he wanted me to do. And so I just, took it with a grain of salt and just rolled on.
Yeah, good for you, Ricky. That's, a great story. And thank you for sharing that with us.
It did
'cause you
cost me
knew.
about $30,000-$40,000 a year in commissions, but life is
But
too
you could,
short to worry about the money when the values are at stake.
and you could sleep at night and you knew you did the right thing.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I'm getting feedback now.
Buddy, Buddy, did you have something?
Yeah, I just got through working with a client who has 25 employees, and he was having a really bad retention problem. And exactly what Annalieza was saying, he was hiring for competency, but he wasn't doing enough research in the onboarding process to determine if the value construct within the new employee was going to fit within the culture. So he was fracturing his cultural fitness in order to pursue higher competency, but he was losing balance in his domain. So he started losing not only retention problems, but he also started losing clients. So it's really critical that you have a balanced value construct. Everyone doesn't have to be exactly the same, but they can't fracture the value component.
Yeah, great point, Buddy. Really, really good point. So does anybody want to add to that question or add to the answer, or just on revisiting values, visiting values, and okay, all right then. So let's have a look. I'm just pick another one out here. Okay, so have you ever stopped to question where your values come from? Anybody?
Yeah, I had to question them a bunch when I realized a lot of them weren't mine.
Right, okay.
They started with my parents, they moved on to teachers, they moved on to bosses, and I had to figure out which ones were right for me, which messages. They didn't all serve me. At some point, I realized that.
Yeah, I think the realization in my case really is the root of my retirement 17 years ago. Because if I look at my I have 7 top values personally, and they go essentially in this order as I sit here today. By the way, Zip, I will challenge, I'm a Christian, so it's not just based upon, you have some underpinning values that, make you who you are. However, anywhere along the journey, how you actually demonstrate and act on those values may evolve or may change. I think that's what Annalieza was saying. And I know that predominantly because we just had a conversation talking about some of these things. But the reality of it is, it's not necessarily, I think today we have a lot of people who signal a value. The example she talked about with Enron is a perfect example of saying that these are your values, but not living or acting on those values, which I think is the core of the question. And even when Ricky told his story, right, he acted on those. Zip
Yeah.
challenged. He said, Annalieza, have you ever left a job because of values? Well, Ricky just did. And I can tell you, I was making $1 million a year, and everybody on the outside would look, but my number one value is family. The second one is community. The third one is integrity. The fourth one is consistency. The fifth one is impact. And the sixth, and then I have, transparency and collaboration. I wasn't necessarily not doing those things, but I realized in my own journey, as I evaluated my values compared to my life and also how I was acting rather than signaling, because I would have told you, but my family was my most important thing. But as I think Annalise already said, I listened to what, my heart was saying, my internal peace, right? And actually just didn't I realized that I was going to end up at the end of the day with regrets. So
Yeah.
that's my kind of answer really to both of those questions in some respect.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't realize that Zip had asked me a question. Have I left a job? Have I left a job? Yes, because of values. Yes, I did leave a job because of the values in the
That was in the
organization.
chat. I'm helping you.
Oh,
I
right.
threw it out.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
you
great
didn't
stuff.
miss it. You didn't miss it. It was in the chat, and I just figured I'd throw that one in because it did connect a couple of dots, I think, from our conversation, what you were saying, because it is true. I mean, the question is, you can say you have all the values, you can say you care about other people, you can say but are you involved in your community? Are you acting? You can say I'm a charitable person, but if you're waiting on somebody else to donate money to a charity, but you're all in, right? No, you're not all in. You're not acting. You're just signaling. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of that going on in today's world, by the way. So,
exactly.
so your conversation is more valuable today than ever, Annalieza.
Yes, which is what I said right at the top. I think, values, this is the day for values, and I think we need to shout loud and proud about them. I think we need to have conversations in our communities about them. Because we just need to get the word out more and to get people acting on better values and thinking about what their behavior is also modeling for our young people in our society, bearing in mind that one day they're going to be leading organizations and maybe even leading governments as well. And also it comes down to hope as well, because we see a lot of mental illness amongst young people these
Yep.
days. And we do blame, and I know that social media has an awful lot to do with that, and smartphones have an awful lot to do with it, and cyberbullying, etc. But at the same time, I sometimes wonder, what do they think of the hope that we're giving them through the values we're modeling for them, what they're seeing in our societies and the fragmentation of our society and communities at the moment? And I don't think that can be helping any, even if it's not the root cause of it, it's a factor in it. And the fact that I'm not a parent, as David knows, I'm not a parent, but I do feel a sense of responsibility towards future generations, maybe because I'm not a parent myself. And of course, young kids, if they're seeing their parents on their smartphones all the time, their eyes lowered, not actually engaging with them or having conversations with them, then that isn't going to help either. So I think it's just raising when we talk about values, we're actually raising our conscious awareness, our own individual conscious awareness. But we have this opportunity to keep this conversation going in our communities, talk about it, and elevate the conscious awareness of our communities as well. And that way we'll keep elevating the conscious awareness of our planet too. So,
Buddy,
yeah.
did you have something? You had raised your hand, and I see Don has his mic open. So I'm just going to open anybody. If you open up your mic, or I'm going to spotlight you. So pay attention to whether you're muted or unmuted. Buddy, did you have something?
Yeah, I think one of the missing components in today, because of the digital presence, is we're not doing enough as owners and as entrepreneurs to discover what the value component is of the people who work for us or work around us. And I don't expect people to live to my values, but what I do is I want to know what their values are, and then I hold them accountable to their values. If their values match enough with mine that they're not going to create a problem, I want them there because maybe they'll expand the table. Maybe they'll give me a new perspective. But if they don't live up to the values that they express, then that's why they have to leave. I don't allow them to stay in the environment. And I think that's probably 50% or more of the problems that I see when I'm doing internal business work as a mediator. That's where it comes from.
Right. Okay, Buddy, that's interesting. So as a business, does your business have a set of values, or are you just going personally on your purely on your personal values?
Well, we have three core values. Obviously, mediators have to have confidentiality as their number one value. The number two value is that if you're not moving toward an optimal solution for all stakeholders, sometimes the best solution is no solution at all. Leave the status quo where it is. And then the third value is do no harm. You can't make a situation worse as a mediator. You have to at least maintain the status quo if you can't improve it. And the fourth value, which we enforce harshly, is if you're not the competent person to handle this conflict, you need to hand it off to the person who does. And I have several people I refer to all the time because, I can do certain things, I can't do other things. And I think if you stay within those core values, you maintain integrity, which is what David mentioned. You have to have family, community, and integrity as your top three. If you can't just live that core, all your other value constructs are meaningless.
Yep.
Great input. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's great.
What other questions you got, Annalieza?
Okay.
This is great.
So
This is good conversation. Thank you, everybody, for
yeah, I was going to say,
sharing.
you're okay for time? You're all right for time, yeah? So have you ever compromised your values to please somebody in your life? Or traded one of your values for theirs?
Yeah, I can answer that question for myself, and this is a moment of transparency, which is also one of my values, by the way. And that is that the reason I made the decision to retire was that I realized I was putting financial benefit, because I was making a lot of money and had a very great lifestyle, but it meant that I was traveling, put millions of miles on airlines, wasn't consistent. Again, family and community. When you're traveling the world, that's a disconnect, right? And it wasn't that. I mean, I still had those. I mean, in my heart, but I wasn't living those. That alignment, that consistency, and so the lack of my own integrity with the values that I espoused was one of the reasons I made the change. It wasn't forced on me. I couldn't, you used a term that I always use. I put God in front of it. So, because those of you who know me know I'm a Christian, but I said God's peace. I lost God's peace. I lost my inner peace with that disconnect that you're talking about, the disconnect between my values hierarchy and my daily walk or my daily journey.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That was really transparent. Well done, David. Thank you. Thank you. I don't want, anybody to have to share anything too personal here, by the way, or anything that you don't feel comfortable sharing. But I talked about, or asked a question in this talk about, have you ever found yourself having to resolve a sticky situation that you found yourself in by compromising one of your values? And I certainly don't want you to describe it, but have you ever maybe found yourself in a sticky situation that you feel as though you've had no choice but to compromise one of your values to extricate yourself from it?
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. It is a tough one.
My answer is yes.
Yeah.
But I'd like to say it was only once, but honestly, again, being honest, there's many instances in my life when you know this because you had corporate decisions and done things, and when you're in it's either you do this or you lose your job, or and so even though it was in conflict, without getting into the specifics again, there were many times I'm ashamed or sad to say shame is not a good energy, so I'm not going to be ashamed, but I'm just saying
No.
honestly, yes, many times.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what we find in life, isn't it? And it's easy for me to sit here today as the leader and the facilitator. So in the interest of transparency and participating with you all, I'll say that I'll never be awarded the label of saint in my life, or angel by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, I've been the victim of bad values, but I've also been a perpetrator of questionable and dubious values as well. And that forced me to look inside of myself and to make some changes. Yeah, because I never set out to hurt anybody, but because my values, because I hadn't actually really sat down and consciously thought about my values and where those values had come from. I did things that frankly, I wish I hadn't done, and I'm remorseful too. But when we can, step back and have the courage, the real courage to confront those things, because by brushing them under the carpet, we're not going to improve, we're not going to change, we're not going to try and turn that into something good and positive that we can use to improve the world around us. Having the courage, I think, being ready to shine that spotlight in on ourselves and to sit down and go on that journey of improvement, starting, as I say, with our values. As I said, how does our life story reflect our values? What does it say about our values? And where we are today as well, how does that reflect our values? Because I firmly believe that, the results in our lives are a direct result of our values, because they drive our behavior and they drive our decisions. So I made a conscious decision that I was going to change. I went on a journey. This was back in 2010. And I had a horrible year in 2012, as I talked very briefly to David about today, but we'll do more so on the podcast. That too was a catalyst for change. I came back to faith, and I was baptized in 2014. And I wanted to go on a journey to take what I'd learned. After all, if we can't take what we've learned and use it for the greater good, that I think probably is the biggest or best, purpose of all. Next to, as I say, giving hope and the promise of a prosperous future for generations to come, which is also what motivates me too. So yeah, I just wanted to do that. I've asked you to share, and I wanted to share with you too. So we're even Stevens.
Thank you, Annalieza, for that. I appreciate your transparency there. It does mean a lot that again, being who we are and being willing. I know it's not the most comfortable thing, but I do respect that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no, that's it's a pleasure. And so let's have a look. Let's see if there are any other questions here. Do we have time for any more, David? Are we okay for time?
Oh yeah, Yeah, we're good. We need to wrap in about maybe 15 minutes. So we're good. And I really I'm gonna actually while and we've got questions, but let me bring somebody that you know, but I want to at least spotlight him for a minute. So Jeff, I'm going to bring you to the stage because we went through the introductory where we were introducing people. By the way, happy haircut. It looks great. So go ahead, Jeff. Annalieza, I know you've met Jeff Klein because he's the one who referred me to you. So thank you, Jeff. She's amazing, wonderful. Thank you. Probably one of the best exclusive of Buddy. No, I'm just kidding. Buddy, I'm not. Buddy was with us last week. So, but we always have very high quality leaders that join us on your recommendation. So thank you for that. But anyway, Jeff, did you have any comments or questions? Or I assume I think everybody here knows, you're the leader of Speaker Co-op and get stages for a lot of speakers and do a lot of coaching for speakers. And Jeff is amazing. But
Annalieza is an
comments?
example of our international efforts. So we are international now and have
And
been.
she's not in Australia, Jeff. She's in Yorkshire, England. So
Did I say Australia?
yeah, you did. And when we were doing the time and communicating via LinkedIn, I said, wow, I'm thinking you're going to be on at 9 in the I'm going, what in the world if she's in Australia? But yeah, it's actually a decent time
I knew
for
she
her.
was in England. I don't know why I said Australia, but
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. We all,
yeah, I have designs on Australia as well, and on the rest of Europe. We have Annalieza's our first English member. We have a member in Ireland. We have a member in Africa. We have several members in Canada. So we're going to take over the world one speaker at a time. And we have traffic to the website from all over the world as well. So if you want to get on these virtual meetings all over the world, we are one way to do that. So memberships start at $29 a month, and we are here to serve people who speak, and we do a good job of it.
Yeah, you do. And yeah, Jeff and I have been partnering, I think since about 2015 or 2016. So it's been a while that we went from lunch and learns with speakers in the room to now only on Zoom and everything in between, I think. So anyway, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you for recommending me to David, Jeff, too.
You're welcome, Annalieza.
Okay.
Thanks. So thank you again. And right. So let's pick on another question. So one for everybody today. Are your values then best serving your vision and your mission? Now, do you think your values are best serving your vision and your mission?
They're sort of interlinked, aren't they? Or at least they are for me.
Yeah, I mean, vision and mission, it's just, yeah, but are they serving, your mission being what you do daily, what your why for your reason for your business existing right now, and the people you serve, and your vision being where you see that going, what you ultimately would like for it to be?
Well, and in doing,
you think your values are sorry, Jeff, go on.
No, that's okay. And in doing lots of strategic work with companies in my previous life, mission, your mission statement is what you tell the public you're all about. Your vision statement is what you tell your employees you're all about, and your core values drive both. So it is sort of it's all intertwined, as Don was saying. So I'm not sure one is better or worse. I think perhaps to maybe massage the question a little bit, are your core values reflecting your mission to the world, your work and your to the world, and your vision to your internal folks? Do your core values actually reflect what you are you walking your walk?
Yeah,
absolutely. Again, the word that keeps coming to mind when in these questions, Annalieza, is that it's the whole thing of alignment. It's really whether it's your I mean, starts here. It starts. These are my values, and that was the challenge in the stories that I mentioned. Is my actions weren't always aligned with what it was in my heart or in my company's stated objectives. So I would say today, um, I'm living those, but it's like any other major transition, right? People got to begin to see in what you're doing that alignment as well, right? They're going to go on the journey with you. The thing is, having 5 kids, I always say, do as I say, not as I do, doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
And so, and it's that applies to big corporations too, right? Like
It should.
again, back
Yeah,
to your
everyone.
exam or political parties or countries or whatever. It's if what you say is what you want, but your actions don't align with that, then
I was
that's a problem.
I was reading an
Yeah,
article today that workers are more in America. Workers are talking more about getting organized again because companies are not treating them the way they have become accustomed to be treated.
Hmm.
So something like 70% of all Americans would join a union if they could, but only 7% of Americans belong to a union because they're not available and companies fight them existing.
right,
Yeah,
right.
and
That's a
that's.
huge, huge difference.
I
Mhm.
think one of the core things that gets lost as well is there's business and relationships you need to walk away from once you know the values don't match.
Yeah,
And too many people pursue money and they don't understand the damage that having a bad client, what it does to your internal culture. You know,
yeah,
you only need one bad interaction between an employee and a client to either cause the employee to want to leave. Now you've got an onboarding problem and a sustainability problem, or you're going to, continue to circle through clients that you can't keep because you didn't double check to just make sure they were someone you really wanted to be in business with. I believe the relationship and the value proposition has to come before the bottom line. That's
Sure, and if
the
you want to
bottom
get
yeah,
line.
yeah,
Yeah.
and if you want to get my attention, question my values.
Oh, of course. And the bottom line too also is if you are consistent, and I've been consistent over 3 decades minimum, dealing with people as an owner. The bottom line is my reputation and my brand is way more important than my retirement account. But conversely, if I take care of my branding and my image, my retirement account is going to be just fine.
Perfect.
yeah. Great, buddy. Yeah, another great share from you. Thank you very much.
What else you got, Annalieza? Anything else you want to? We got a couple minutes here. Are you? By the way, before we get too far down the road, I know you've got some things coming up, so don't forget those. I want to get those. I want to get those on the table because I love this conversation and I want to make sure we follow up with you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I think honestly, you've worked very hard today. And you've shared, some great insights, and been, fantastic sports really, because it's a very, it's a very personal topic. And yeah, it doesn't involve quite a lot of transparency to talk about our values, because like I say, they represent us, and the walk that we've gone to get to our values today will have been, life life will have taken us on that journey. And as I say, learning about ourselves, being brave enough to do that, having the courage, but also having the courage to model for our businesses and the people, our customers, our clients, and everybody, because our communities look to our businesses as well. We're very visible in our communities, so we have to model great values. And as Buddy was saying about, letting a client go, that actually erodes the morale of the workforce as well, and also compromises the good clients, risks you losing good clients. I just wanted to make the point as well that you can do that as well with employees, because you might have a fantastic team member who is great at their job, but they just suck the energy and the life out of the people around them. They're uncooperative. They don't collaborate, and they just, you know, make life miserable, affect the culture and the climate. And I know, have you heard of Zappos, Tony Zaya? Yeah, they are prepared to hire and fire on their values. They spent a whole year working on their corporate values, actually, came up with 10, but 10 values that they're prepared to hire and fire on, because they won't keep somebody who's great, but who actually jeopardizes the culture of the company and brings down the energy and the happiness of everybody else who's working in the organization. So yeah, so I hope you've got something out of this today. As David said, so I mentioned that next Thursday is World Values Day. I'm part of the official World Values Day Values-thon, and I'm running 2 sessions on the subject of hope. These are actually taster sessions. I'm calling them taster sessions of the Change Your World transformation tables, based on the book I was actually reading from. Oh, I don't know whether you can see it because of my background there. No, it's disappearing. Change Your World by John Maxwell and Rob Hoskins. They wrote the book actually during the pandemic, and at the beginning of 2021, they were all ready to go with a system giving us Maxwell leadership members the opportunity to volunteer as to train as facilitators of this. It's a non-profit, so we're not allowed to charge for the transformational table experience. And so I thought it'd be lovely to actually run a taster session for World Values Day on the value of hope. The theme for World Values Day this year is community. Hope is the very first lesson on this 6-week transformation table experience. You don't have to stay for the 6 weeks, but maybe you'll enjoy it so much you'll actually want to. And we're going to be looking at this value of hope, measuring ourselves against that value, and seeing how we can keep the hope fires burning in our communities this winter as we're facing so many challenges. So if you'd like to be part of that, what should I do, David? Ping you the link maybe to circulate to everybody, the Eventbrite link, because of the nature of it, because it's very interactive, and because of the way that the transformation table platform is set up. I've only got space for 10 around the table. These are small group conversations. So these are not going to have, loads and loads of people on these, just like today, a small group conversation, but a little more structured. We'll be reading from a worksheet that John and Robert provided on the subject of hope, discussing our key takeaways from that. And then, just as I say, measuring ourselves and talking about maybe how we could increase, up that value, up our hope score a little bit, and the impact it could have on our communities if we did that. So 10 around the table. That 10 includes me, because I don't just facilitate, just as I did today. I participate as well. And one of those places has actually gone on the 11 o'clock session. So there's one at 12 noon, my time, which is going to be early doors for you guys because it's going to be 6 o'clock in the morning. But I'm doing a special one at 11 o'clock at night here in the UK. Hopefully that will accommodate you a little bit better. It'd be lovely to see your friendly faces around that table, around that virtual table next week. That will be
5 p.m. Central Daylight Time here.
Yes, that's right.
6
5
p.m.
o'clock.
Eastern Daylight Time. So
yes,
those
5
of
and
us
6
that are on this side of the pond. Well, let's before we go any further, and by the way, Annalieza, just send me those links. They will be, for those watching this in replay, which is a lot more people than will be here, or that are here right now for sure, because that's the metrics that I see. It will be in the show notes, if you will. There'll be a link in there so you can click on that. But just be aware, there's a limited number of seats, if you will. So. But anyway,
great.
Annalieza,
Okay,
thank you. We're all, very blessed by you sharing, and we appreciate that. Jeff, I'm going to spotlight you for a second here because honestly, you've lined up mastermind speakers for the next 2 weeks, and I'll just say
we're actually we're the 20th yet, but the 21st we have an amazing coach named Shiraz Babu. Shiraz is another Canadian friend, and he is a transformational life coach. He had a life-changing event that he figured out a way to. He was in chronic pain, and he found a way to solve that, and now he teaches other people how to get past their daily trials and tribulations, and he's amazing, and he's got a really eye-opening book, and you'll enjoy his talk very much.
And that was on the 28th, did you
And
say?
he's on the 21st. He's next
Oh,
week.
21st. Okay, so the
Okay. And then the
21st.
28th, we don't have anybody, but we will
Okay.
probably
If you
by
if you
Monday
don't
or-
get some, yeah, if you don't get somebody, I've got content. So I mean,
Yeah.
as folks know. Okay,
Well, we
so
do
thank you, Jeff.
we have speakers for the first 2 weeks in November, and we have a speaker for the first week in December, all lined up for you as well. So
Yeah, I think we've got Pretnya on the
yeah,
4th
Pradnya
and
Leitner is in November.
Pretnya and Rob Wilson, I think, on the 11th. So
And then,
so we have them coming up, and again, I appreciate everybody being here. Um, and for those that are in local network, or you're anybody here, by the way, that comes to us from out of Dallas Fort Worth, if you want to join or be part of a networking group, we actually do a hybrid meeting every Wednesday where we have people on Zoom and in the room. These days we got a lot more in the room than we do, but still we've kept the door open for the people on Zoom so that
and
we
if,
can
I'm
bring.
sorry, David, if I may, Annalieza, if you'll put your LinkedIn link in the chat for the folks who are here to connect with you as well.
Oh, right. Okay. Thanks for that prompt, Jeff. Thank you. I will do.
Yeah.
She says
And,
searching for her glasses.
yeah, and the good news for that is if you go to Meetup and you go to the promotion we've done on it, her name is a hot link in there as well. So if you click on her name, it takes you to her LinkedIn page. So for those watching in replay again, whether that's a place you can find it. I want to read something because a couple of times, and again, this is just Annalieza, you inspired me, and thank you for that. This is a poem that it's unknown. I don't know who the author is, so I don't have anybody to attribute it to. It's called The Man in the Glass. It says, when you get what you want in the struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass.
How
He's the
true.
fellow to please, never mind all the rest. He's with you clear to the end, and you've passed your most dangerous and difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of life and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartaches and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. And when you talk about that alignment, that personal realization that it's you that lives your values, it's not looking at somebody else and getting them to live the values you want them to live. That's the test. And I love and that informed my journey in some of the places along the way that I've told you I've had some hard decisions to make too. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me today. And yeah, it's
you've
been
been
an absolute
amazing, and I'm
pleasure
looking
to
forward
share
to.
with you all.
Yeah, you've been amazing. I'm looking forward to sharing you with our Warrior versus Zombie audience and anybody else that I can do. So thank you very much, Annalieza. You've been amazing. The any other announcements?